trees, swarms of tiny blue bodies. Their wings caught the starlight, and Mo saw the Black Prince glancing anxiously at the sky. It was still as dark as the hills all around, but the fairies were never wrong. On a cold night like this, only the coming of dawn could lure them from their nests, and the village whose harvest the robbers were trying to save this time lay dangerously close to Umbra. As soon as daybreak came, they must be gone. A village like many others, only a dozen poor huts, a few barren stony fields, and a wall that would hardly keep out a child, let alone a soldier. 30 women without their menfolk, 3 dozen fatherless children. 2 days ago, the new governor's man had carried off almost the entire harvest of the neighboring village. The robbers had reached the place too late, but something could still be salvaged here. They'd spent hours digging, showing the women how to hide livestock and provisions underground. The strong man was carrying the last hastily dug sackful of potatoes, his rough-hewn face red with effort. It went the same color when he was fighting or drunk. Between them all, they lowered the sack into the hiding place they had made just beyond the fields, and Mo covered the entrance with a network of twigs to hide the storage pit from soldiers and tax gatherers. By now, toads were croaking in the surrounding hills as if to entice the day out, and the men on watch among the huts were getting restless. They'd seen the fairies too. High time to get away, back into the forest, where a hiding place could always be found, even though the new governor was sending more and more patrols out to the hills. The milksop, the widows of Umbra called him, a good nickname for the Adderhat's puny brother-in-law. But the milksop's greed for what few possessions his new subjects had was insatiable. Mo rubbed his eyes. Heavens, he was tired. He'd hardly slept for days. There were just too many villages that they might yet be able to reach ahead of the soldiers. He looked worn out. Risa had said only yesterday when she woke up beside him, unaware that he hadn't come to bed until the first light of dawn. He had said something about bad dreams, told her he'd been passing the sleepless hours by working on the book he was binding, a collection of her drawings of fairies and glassmen. He hoped Risa and Maggie would be asleep again, now when he came back to the lonely farmhouse that the Black Prince had found for them. It was east of Umbra, an hour's journey from the city on foot, and far from the land where the Adderhat still ruled, made immortal by a book that Mo had bound with his own hands. A girl hesitantly approached Mo. How old would she be? 6? 7? Her hair was as blonde as Maggie's, but it was a long time since Maggie had been so small. Shyly, she stopped a pace away from them. Snapper emerged from the darkness and went over to the child. Yes, go on, take a good look, he whispered to the little girl. That's really him, the blue jay. He eats children like you for supper. Snapper loved such jokes. Mo picked back the words on the tip of his tongue. Don't believe a word he says, he said, in a low voice. Why aren't you asleep like everyone else? The child looked at him. Then she pushed up his sleeve with her small hands until the scar showed, the scar of which the songs told tales. She looked at him wide-eyed with the same mixture of awe and fear he had now seen in so many places. The blue jay. The girl ran back to her mother and Mo straightened up. Whenever his chest hurt where Mottola had shot him, it felt as if he had slipped in there to join him, the robber to whom Cornelia had given Mo's faith and voice. Or had the blue jay always been a part of him, merely sleeping, until Cornelia's world brought him to life? Sometimes, when they were taking meat to one of the starving villages, or a few sacks of grain stolen from a millsop's bailiffs, women would come up to him and kiss his hand. Go and thank the Black Prince, not me, he always told them. But the prince just laughed. Get yourself a bear, he said, then they leave you alone. A child began crying in one of the huts. A tinge of red was showing in the night sky, and Mo thought he heard hoofbeats. Horsemen. At least a dozen of them, maybe more. How fast the ears learned to tell what sounds meant, much faster than it took the eyes to decipher written words. The fairies scattered, the women cried out and ran to the huts where their children slept. Mo's hand drew his sword as if it had on its own accord, as if it had never done anything else. It was the sword he had taken from the castle of Night, the sword that once belonged to Firefalls. The first light of dawn. Wasn't it said that they always came at first light because they loved the red of the sky? With any luck, they'd be drunk after one of the master's endless banquets. The prince signaled to the robbers to take up their positions surrounding the village. It was only a couple of courses of flat stones, and the huts wouldn't offer much protection either. The bear was snorting and grunting, and here they came now out of the darkness. Horsemen, more than a dozen of them, with a new crest of armor on their breasts, a basilisk on a red background.